think it's between 19 and maybe 35. That's a demographics. So, I've been doing martial arts for a long, long time. And, there's always been trends throughout the history. Boxing used to be really big back in the day when I was growing up, that boxing Saturday night, and then mixed martial arts became popular. Wrestling was big. So throughout history, martial arts has had its, heyday depending on what the audience wanted to view. So with traditional martial arts, in contrast, it's a little bit different. It's more practiced in fact, every culture has some form of martial arts, whether it's the Greek traditional martial arts, the Israeli, the French have this, Savate. So every culture has their form of martial arts because everyone had to defend themselves at one time. What's really more well known, maybe because China's such a big country, they know about Kung Fu and Karate and so forth because a lot of that was introduced to foreigners during the military years. So Karate came to this country probably, Judo came first actually for the people that were stationed in Japan, and then later on there were people who were stationed in Okinawa and these places. They brought back these different arts that they were exposed to that seemed so different and so unique. And then as things went on, and each culture actually had their day sort of. There was judo, there was Okinawan styles, Japanese styles, Taekwondo, Hapkido. All of these became popular in different phases of history. So, you go back maybe 50 years and you could see all of that happening. So traditional Kung Fu really didn't get popular, or at least exposure, till probably in the early 60s when it first made it to the U.S. And that's kind of something that happened, and Bruce Lee was a big player in that. Everybody knows Bruce Lee. So he brought some interest into the traditional Chinese systems. But, with Bruce Lee, he was more of a renegade in the sense that he didn't believe in the way the traditional is practiced. And the reason for that, because as everyone likes to look at martial arts, is this practicality and how can it be applied. So practicality is important because everyone that takes martial arts wants it for self-defense, and how you can apply it and how do you use it. So then, if that's the only aspect you're interested in, then something like boxing, something like mixed martial arts, something like the more practical side in the beginning becomes something that people are interested in, drawn to it. But the reality for the traditional is that it takes a lot longer to develop insight into how to use the movements, mainly because the traditionalists go through these forms, and these forms are a training method, whereas something like Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, mixed martial arts, even Wing Chun is more of a style that they, right in the get-go, they start to work with a partner, and they develop, right from there. So they have their approach, but you need a partner to work with all the time. With the traditionalists, we work with sequences to build motor skill, to build the things, and I talk about the traditional side because I've been doing this for a long, long time, and why haven't I been drawn into some of these other arts? Because of the practicality. Because to me, practicality isn't the only end goal for me. What is important to me is the purpose, the benefits, and why we practice these traditional arts. There's a lot more facets to the traditional arts that can meet the eye, because you have the exercise side of it, you have the practicality side of it, you have a tremendous building of mind-body connection, and now today, as a lot of researchers have been discovering, is how exercise is so important to brain development and intelligence, and how exercise influences all of us in that way. So I look at this from a different perspective because, I've been studying for this since I was a child, and I'm a senior citizen now, and I've throughout the decades and the generations of change, and as I aged and evolved, I actually went through the different ups and downs, the plateaus that anyone goes through when they're doing something that's important to them during that stage of life. But because I've done this consistently over time, that the ups and downs, the common denominator is still the traditional art, the way we practice. The end goals vary because of your objectives. Maybe it's more important on the physical level, the practicality side when you're younger. As you evolve, you get into the work field, you have family, you have this. So your goals are completely different. So one of the key benefits from the traditional arts is that mind-body relationship. A lot of things that require practicality, you age out. Most people that get older are less interested in practicality and whether they're going to need to defend themselves because the demographics change and your whole attitude about what you need to do changes. So, there is that thing that there's age-related type of evolving, and there's also age-related degeneration. So with age-related degeneration, the only way to maintain a lifestyle of health and activity and maintaining that is through some form of discipline. So traditional martial arts is a discipline. It has numerous facets, but the main facet after you get through a certain stage of say, the practical side of it is an interest level that takes you into how do I maintain a certain healthy lifestyle and still stay active and keep my body in somewhat of a fit condition. So traditional martial arts does offer that. And I'm a true believer of it because I've been doing it long enough, and my goals now while I teach are really targeted for the specific group I'm teaching. So I don't teach children like I teach adolescents. I don't teach adolescents like I teach, teenagers and maybe high school and college kids because their goals are different. And then when you get to, say, the working level, and in fact, with the traditional martial arts, and which is kind of disappointing to me, is that we don't really attract the group from high school to maybe after college and maybe into the working because it takes time, it takes effort, and it does take memory. That stage of life, they're trying to develop a career and they're working with their mind a lot, so they don't want to boggle their mind with more memory of other things like sequence. So the only thing younger people are interested in is how to stay fit without actually having to involve their mind. So that's why a lot of people that come back to traditional martial arts is a little bit later, maybe in their late 30s, maybe early 40s, and they drift back into it and they say, well, I've always wanted to do traditional martial arts, but never had the chance to do it. So knowing that, and then there's the people that are a little bit older that have stayed with it, or they've done it all their life, they've come back to it, and they still want to practice it and understand why they can still do it at a certain level. Because as you get older, you will be, you're going to have some physical problems and some issues as a course of aging. And then if you haven't done anything, if you did take a break, it's going to be harder for you to get back into it because you have to get into shape. So that does take some work and it does take some effort. So everything is time-based and effort-based. So the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So with the traditional martial arts, I plug it because not only is the goal to preserve the traditional martial arts, but we have to really look at it and understand the value and the benefit from it. And through the form, we learn to use our musculature. It's different from weightlifting or any of the other physical things that we do. So Kung Ji Kun and these forms, we're really using our musculature to develop the strength and movement that is required. So that's a motor skill. How much strength do we use? How much flexibility do we need? This is our pillar form. All the positions that we do. Does it take memory? This just shows you how amazing the mind and the body can become, because while I'm talking about a totally different subject from what we're doing, we're in a position when we're like this, we're really going through, this is programmed into my system so that I really don't need to actually think about what I'm doing. So that's what happens between the mind and body and movement. So traditional martial arts is self-cultivation. Self-cultivation means just like there's team sports, there's partnered sports, whether it's tennis and so forth. So something like golf, something like martial arts is really self-cultivation because you're building with body form, body mechanics, strength and flexibility, striking a target, accuracy of movement. Those things take a lot of discipline and skill. So traditional martial arts isn't for everyone, but if you're one of those that want to do something that you develop skill, focus, and the ability to maintain your body's coordination and balance as you get into a ripe age of, the late 60s or 70s or beyond, this is something you can actually do. And it doesn't necessarily mean just Tai Chi. Kung Fu is actually something that you can do even at a later age. Now, while I was growing up, when I first opened the school in maybe 25 years ago, I didn't realize that people at that age would be doing Kung Fu. But now that I'm 25 years beyond that, I could realize that, well, I'm still doing it. I said, maybe people can do it to a later age. So it is. It's, when you start and you put the effort in, you can do it for a long time. So, practicality. We just speak of practicality. This is a punch. Boom. So do we have this like any of the other, like boxing? We have boxing, we have hooks, we have back foot. So we have footwork, we have agility, we have all the things that we have, but you don't see it when you first learn the traditional arts. But, the end goal is still the same. If you're going to throw a punch and you want to knock somebody out, your end goal is to put the power at the front of the fist, and you want to hit your target, and you have to be able to reach your target. So where does that all come from? It comes from footwork, comes from body mechanics, comes from speed and power. So all the conflicts that we have in any sport, whether it's, regardless of what it is, if it's a striking sport, like volleyball or it's tennis or any of these striking sports where it requires a certain amount of agility and accuracy, it's something that you can develop, but it's still speed and accuracy. So in the forms, we practice this, we practice this, we practice this. Those are movements that we have. Where's the accuracy of movement? It's from the body form. So when we learn these things, just like we're doing this, you learn to move. So when you hit, boom, boom, you're like that. Boom, you strike. So the body form is there, but it doesn't look like you were doing the form that you were just doing now. So it's really a training tool. It's a book of movement, and you don't think of it. A lot of people went to back in the Run Shaw days. You go to Chinese movies, and everything's choreographed, and you go like this, boom, boom. In fact, all your movies today are choreographed. But it looks amazing because of the camera angles and so forth. So they've developed the methodology to create those things. But all the traditional arts back in the day when they were doing the movies were choreographed scenes and looked like they're doing all these hundreds of movements and it would look great when it's choreographed. But realistically, it doesn't happen like that. So you have to rely on your reflex actions. So when the hands are here and you go like this, or you have sensitivity, how do you learn to grab? You learn to grab by grabbing. So when you do these movements, you're simulating that motion, which is a lot harder for most people to imagine how it feels. But the thing is, believe it or not, when you practice a movement over and over again and your body adapts, you adapt in many, many ways. And this ties into functionality. So functionality is practicality, right? So when we learn to move our body, are you applying it only to how you would use your techniques? So you would look at, like, say, something very specific. So if you're doing, say, an arm lock or a joint lock or some type of grappling, you have that experience. But will you take that experience into something that you do on a daily basis that's functional? Maybe or maybe not. You might not have that open vision. But something like this, where I'm teaching Tai Chi or I'm teaching hand movements like this, I try to tie that into functionality beyond the practicality. I'm looking at functionality on balance, movement. These are things that we have as we age, and you age out and you can't do certain things. Now, all the contact sports are great till you get injured. Now, when you're injured, what else can you do? And you're still interested in martial arts. Well, what you can do is the traditional arts. You get something out of your system and you want to do something else, there's always the option. And the option is the traditional martial arts. And it has a lot of things to offer as far as, arousing your interest and why some of those things work. In fact, many of the things that you're probably doing already, whether it's a takedown or you're grappling or moving, how do you maneuver your body? Is there a joint lock? How do you move your joints in order to get in and out of positions? It's called anti-joint locking. We have that in Tai Chi and in Kung Fu because the flexibility of the body and how you use your head and your body has a lot to do with how you're using your body mechanics to neutralize a force and to blend it. So it's all there, but it's not always there on that physical level. So practicality, and this reaches a certain limit where you don't need to apply it unless you're in the ring or whatever. So you want to continue something so you can do things. Look at something like Hung Gar Kung Fu. This is a joint. This is actually a joint lock. When you grab and you turn and you move, these are joint lock type things that you take and you compromise the joint. So what is a joint lock? It takes a joint into its extreme position to pinch a nerve or press on a nerve so you have pain. That's ultimately what the goal is. So, regardless of, if you enjoy that, then that's one thing. If you don't enjoy that now because you've moved on to a different stage of life, then something like practicing this, practicing your forms, these are still practical in a sense, but you're using it in a different way. When we go like this and we hook, we go like this, and we go like that, that's a back fist. You have a hook. So when you look at your forms, look at it in that way. So we're not, most of the traditional martial arts today, not everyone is very proficient in the way they use it, but a lot of that has to do with because they don't have enough years into it, and a lot of that has to do with misunderstanding. So, if you're an idealistic person and that's how you vision traditional martial arts to be, then that kind of is maybe a dream. Really, the reality is that when we practice movement and develop motor skill, we actually develop an understanding of, body mechanics and body intelligence. So that is really, at this stage, for me, is what's most important is, how did this all come to be and why the traditional arts survive to today? It survived today because it does have a value, but it's not marketed enough to get people to understand really the depth and breadth of what you can really get out of this. From the children on up to senior citizens, there are benefits throughout, but one of the common denominators and one of the common things in it is effort, long-term practice, consistency, and development of what? The mind and then the body. So I mentioned earlier that a lot of researchers are looking at exercises but when you develop your brain to do a lot of the motor skills that we're doing and develop the neurons and the wiring, the dendrites, all the stuff that's tied to your motor skill, it is enhanced and it's built and it gets bigger and bigger and deeper into your system. So that's what a coordinated being is. Now, we're not all born coordinated. So some people are somewhat gifted. They have an advantage, so they learn motor skill a little bit faster, or they see things, and the mind-body connection is more present. So what is that mind-body connection? It's really the visuals, eye-hand coordination. Some people see it and they can do it. Some people see it and they think they're doing it, but the body doesn't react and respond. So it really depends on the individual. And if you have the coordination, you still have to understand that when you learn something, and if you want depth of knowledge, that means insight about what you're doing, it takes a long time for all of that information to digest. So you start to experience what is happening between the two movements. So if I'm like this and I cross like this, those are what we do. When we switch, these are techniques that build off of movements. So when we cycle, when we cycle. Last time I showed you, like when we strike, you don't know where the next movement's going to be, but when your hand is here and it strikes here, where's it going to go? It's going to go here, it's going to go here, it's going to go there. Where does it go? These things are programmed. Hundreds of thousands of motions have been built into the body. Can you draw off of those hundreds of thousands? Probably not in the beginning, but if it's there, it's there. So anything that goes into your long-term memory is housed there, but how fast you can draw out something from long-term memory depends on how frequently you go to that, right? So you can't draw off of something that has been set back in the back of the head and you can't really bring it out to the front. That's what happens when you age. So a lot of information you find out that you have kind of a slowness of response. So if you're not using your mind that way, then you're going to be sluggish. If you're using your mind and your body, so then you have the ability, because everything is working right. You have good circulation. You have, good response and good ability to bring out something to the forefront of your mind quickly because it's active. So that's just some insight about the people that want to make a comparison of what practicality and why traditional arts has such a benefit. I have to look at it from my eyes because even the traditionalists don't all look at it the same way that I do, and mainly because some of the traditionalists only think of practicality. So they think of practicality as what they do to compromise with only the side of practicality is that they avoid the exercise part of it. So exercise is movement, exercise, and repetition. So anything that requires something that you do over and over again is an exercise. It doesn't only have to be physical, it could be a mental exercise. So when you're doing something like crossword puzzles, you say, well, that's exercising the brain. But that's exercising within the realm of that. When you exercise the brain, when we do forms and try to use the analysis of movement, then that exercises the brain, the body, and those connections that transform your thought process into a whole different level of exchange. So you can do that forever. That's why you see a lot of the older people that have been in a specific field for a long, long time, and they're still thinking and they're still using their mind. They're very agile. Unfortunately, if they don't exercise their body, they're still going to deteriorate the same way that someone that doesn't do something like this will deteriorate. So something like this does have its advantage if you think of it along the way or along the lines that I think about it. If you're just a traditionalist, just thinking that the practicality side of it, which is one aspect, is important, then you're missing the whole picture when it comes to that. So traditional martial arts does have a value beyond the surface. And the only way you can find out what's beyond the surface is you have to get involved with it. I'm streaming these out to trying to draw interest and exposure to the traditional martial arts. And if you're interested, you should follow us. You should log in, subscribe. And this is a big world now. It's a global access to all the technology and the ability to get it from here to, wherever in milliseconds, so people across the globe can see these videos. So that's an amazing thing. So on that note, what time is it? Listen, just 4 minutes. So that's something I wanted to get across, because a lot of people following might say, well, he's teaching this, and so but what are those benefits, right? So you can see when you strike, that's a muscle memory. When you strike, that's a muscle memory. Sliding step and strike. So that's what you should practice, your basics. Doesn't matter if you can learn the second pillar form or the first pillar form. The basic thing is this. That's your tiger crane. If you're doing the water punch, it's that. When you're striking around, it's that. When you step up, it's that. So switching stances, moving, these are parts of agility of footwork. So how do you move like that? You have to learn first the basic foundation, and then you learn to be much more agile. And then the key thing to any type of movement is to learn to relax, let go of tension. In fact, tension is the biggest downer for anything. Stress creates tension. Anxiety creates tension. Nervousness creates tension. All of those things are negatives. So why would you want to be tense? You don't want to be tense. It's a response to a mindset or an attitude. So change that attitude by learning how to move your body better. You build confidence. You can de-stress. You can learn how to appreciate something other than what you're not noticing through sort of the beauty and the aesthetics of movement. So on that note, it's Saturday. It's a sunny day. Enjoy it. This is still kind of a lockdown. We have another maybe 15 days before we can see if we can actually open our doors. But before that, we're going to be probably streaming another dozen classes. And when we open the doors, we're going to see how we can continue to follow up. So if you want these videos to continue, hopefully we can continue to do it as frequently when we open the doors. And we really need your feedback for us to know that there is an interest out there, because I'm in only one location. We're not one of these big commercial schools with branches all over the place. We're housed in one place in Massachusetts. In fact, it's Newton, Massachusetts. And if you're interested in continuing, let us know so we can plan and adapt our schedule for both, the global network as far as, the interest in the traditional arts, and the local network that can come here. And on that note, enjoy the weekend, stay healthy, and follow those rules of social distancing.